We figured we wanted to mix it up a little bit. But on a serious note, if we want to be a great country, again, we got to be a healthy country. And if those kids didn't represent what's possible, nothing does. I mean, we first saw parkour and we saw some of the videos on the web and I said, yeah, we'll show the videos, but we reached out to Jim at the Las Vegas Parkour Group. These are kids who came here last night, were practicing, they believe in the sport, they're athletic, they're healthy, they're fit. Let's give them another round of applause. So in spirit of the conference of Fast Forward, we said, what's really hard here? Do we have enough technology? Yes. Are the good ideas out there? Yes. It's really about the organizational issues and getting people to talk. So I reached out to our chairman, Don Goldstein. I said, Don, you got everybody we need. You know, you got all these different departments and, you know, you're doing some visionary stuff and you're a big battleship, you know, the biggest in the world, but yet you're innovative. That's not really typically the case. What do you think about the idea of bringing 7 of your executives to speak? And he kind of thought, you know, as most people go, Jim, you're crazy again. And then he thought about it and we talked about it. He goes, no, I like the idea and I'm going to reach out. And he did. And this is the panel that we're going to be presenting today. So if you can come on up, as I mentioned your name. Ellie Feingold, Innovation and Business Intelligence. That's one group of what CB does and is dealing with technology. Right behind him, Don Goldstein, obviously the Chief Information Officer. This is Don's umbrella responsibility, but guess what? He's got a lot of different people he has to talk to. Tony Long, Asset Management, Asset Services. The property side of it, touching the clients, making sure the properties are run. Does he have automation and technology needs? You bet he does. Xavier Menendez, Corporate Services. Xavier's talking to all the major corporations out there. He's got to go to Don, he's got to go to Tony, he's got to go to all these different people. And guess what? His clients, the corporations with big campuses, want technology solutions. Patty Proshek, Managing Director. Oh, I guess the numbers matter. We got to move some information around, and financial information's right in the middle of it. Oh, and wait a minute, Dave Pogue's over there running around talking about sustainability. Well, if we use intelligent technologies, can we make our buildings more sustainable? Oh, and wait a minute, but Peter's got to deal with energy. Does he talk to Dave at all? I mean, sustainability and energy are, you know, they're all, you know, supposedly aligned, but are they really? And when we finally were able to put together this panel, I could not believe that we got all these top-line executives to fly literally from all over the country. I was talking with Tony last week. Where were you? In Spain, I think? Spain, and then London. I mean, these are some seriously smart, successful, committed, and engaged individuals, and I'm honored to be with you today, and I think we're going to have some fun. There's no wrestling allowed. Patty, we'd like you to give us a little parkour demonstration because there were no girls out there. So, all right. Well, with that, let's get started. If I could maybe just to get us rolling, start you with Ellie, and let's go around and just give us 30 seconds, 60 seconds of what your day is all about.
Well, I've got a very interesting day every day because I never know quite what's going to happen. The innovation function in our company is a new function. And I think it's very much in the theme of the panel here today, because it's really about trying to take opportunities from one part of the company, elevate them, bring attention to them, and connect them to other parts of the company. So in any given day, I'll look at new technologies, I'll talk with partner companies, and then I'll spend a lot of time with our business talking about the things that are coming up from the field, that are out there from our customers, and that we're learning every day, and great ideas that we can bubble up. So I've got a great job. So you basically just are out there pushing the envelope and making sure everybody's innovative, everybody's thinking outside the box and pushing the envelope. Well, it's you know, for a company and organization as large and diverse as ours, it's not only about pushing the envelope out, but also about bringing people back in together so that you have a common framework for innovation. You know, it's very easy for an individual to go out and try something new, but for an organization to do it, you really have to be very connected all the time. So a lot of it is about communication.
So does he drive you crazy? I mean, because you know you have to
all the time.
Yeah,
it's my job.
It's a job. Yeah. So obviously we know what a chief information officer is, but let's take it a little further. Give us what you do on a daily basis in context of how you interact with all these people.
Every day is different, as Ellie said, but typically I will start my day in Europe, right, in their early afternoon, and I'll end my day in Asia. So all throughout the day, we talk about organizational alignment. My job is to help be the connective tissue between all of these individuals sitting here and their departments and the business leaders, both geographically and also from the lines of business that we have. With 34,000 people around the world in 60 plus countries and 500 plus facilities, it's a challenge every day to make sure that I can be that connective tissue, but that's why I try to surround myself with really smart people who can connect with their regional leaders and their lines of business every single day.
And there's natural tension between the two of you, right? I mean, because you've got obviously big responsibilities, big projects, big deadlines, got to stay with it, and then Ellie comes in with a crazy idea and says, "Damn, we got to do it." I mean, do you lock your door once in a while?
Well, no, my door's always open. But really, yesterday when we had the CIO roundtable and we had Martha Heller talk about the CIO paradox, she mentioned the cost containment function of IT on the one side, keep costs down, keep them flat, right? On the other hand, innovate, right? So invest. I think in our situation, we are investing. There have been years, I think in the industry, and certainly our company would have reflected that a couple of years ago. We would spend a lot on M&A, maybe less on our own platform. That's changing. We did a big acquisition last year, but now we're really focused on the platform, and we have been for the last 2 years.
And Tony, that's what we talked about a little bit. Why don't you give us a little background and maybe expand a little bit on what CB's been doing for the last 3 years, and then as far as technology innovation and where you see the next 3 are going to go.
Well, in the business that I'm responsible for is I run the P&L of the property management and leasing business. So it really consists of 5 distinct areas: property management, leasing, technical services, client accounting, which Patty runs, and then project management, so the building of space inside the built facility. And the last 3 years, we've seen our portfolio grow quite a bit. We're currently at about 2 billion square feet globally. And in the last 5 years, that business has doubled in size. And so about every year, we churn about 20 to 30% of that square footage due to property sales. And so, in the recent years when we've seen the property markets not be quite as active in the capital markets as it was in, say, 2007, we haven't seen quite as much churn. But that churn means that we have to be nimble at turning over properties for the new owners. And so we've seen an enormous demand for being nimble in turning over that property data and doing transitions quickly.
With those kind of demands being put on you, you're talking to Don a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, about 2 years ago, we formed a global committee for this line of business. And before, it had always been run as a local business. It will always be a local business, but we really wanted to connect the dots globally. CBRE, if you know anything about our company, we're about a $6 billion a year revenue company. We're in the Fortune 500, and we in the low high 400s. Low 400s of the Fortune 500, but we've grown through acquisition. And so with that acquisition mentality and that whole growth strategy, we've basically bought great companies and put them together. And now about 2 years ago, they came to me and others and said, okay, we want you to really put this on a global scale and really connect the dots. And we really can't do that unless we do it in technology. And so,
it's
the client
glue.
accounting.
I mean, if the information that you all possess, in what you do. You got data, you got information, you got business processes in your own little silos. But as this whole world's evolving in the cloud and mobile and information coming from one system to another, Don's going to be tying it all together.
And that'll be the key to the globalization of our business. But we had a very small committee. It was about 8 people, but at least 3 of them on the committee had something to do with technology. So very integrated.
Xavier, how about you on your daily activity?
I would say that I have one of the most interesting jobs in the firm. I don't wake up every day thinking about Microsoft Outlook or how our servers are doing or what our data centers are doing. But I do have a pretty schizophrenic role. I sit right in between IT on one side and our global corporate services on the other. And I guess one of the things that I monitor pretty actively is the tension between our GCS business, one of the largest in CB, and IT. And any given day, either one of those parts of the business will accuse me of being more of an advocate for the other. So I'm probably doing it just right. In IT, they look at me as an advocate for GCS, and in GCS, they look at me as an IT guy that's coming in to impose some changes. But I think a year ago or so, when Don and Jim Wilson and Ellie and others identified the need for somebody to sit in my role, it's very telling. It indicates how much CBRE is looking at the practicality of technology and how to make it real in the delivery of our services, our outsourcing services to our corporate clients.
You got 10 clients out there,
Yep.
Or one client, and they're going to ask you 10 questions in a given interview or a conversation. How many of those questions are about technology, automation, process enhancement, and innovation?
Well, that's not always such an easy thing to identify. I mean, sometimes they'll ask questions that really have a technology implication, but it's not really phrased in a technology question. I mean, our clients tell us that they want scalability and the information anywhere. They want it on iPads, iPhones. And part of that is a technology question.
Right.
But the bigger part of it is all about, the business. What would that enable you to do? Right? And what's the practical, value of doing some of that? And that's where the tension really
Well, one of our great case studies we'll be presenting at the conference is Microsoft. Daryl Smith has been doing insane, great work for the last 18 months. And so Microsoft could be a client of CB, I think they are. So when you align with that corporation, right, it's pretty helpful for Microsoft to know that you get it and that you've got a team of people that if they don't get it, want to get it.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's generally true.
Yeah. And I think, Microsoft's obviously a very sophisticated, world-class company, probably at the top of the food chain as far as innovation goes in the corporate world. They're leading the way. But as more corporations follow Microsoft's lead, then I think the fact that you're aligning more with IT in this kind of fashion makes an awful lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Patty, how about what's your day look like?
Typically, my day will start out with exactly similar to these gentlemen. From a global perspective, you're on the calls right away at 7 o'clock in the morning, making sure that you're in contact with the European team. And the people in Asia typically are the people that are up in the middle of the night talking with us, so we appreciate that. But I think what we're looking at is trying to make sure that we can standardize the data that we have for our clients. So many of our clients are coming to us wanting to make sure that they can get the same kind of service in the US, in Europe, in Asia, wherever they might own their properties. But I think that there's a lot of complications when it comes to the localization, all the regulatory requirements that are out there. And so a lot of my day ends up getting spent talking to a lot of these gentlemen up here on the panel, but also understanding what technology, what role it will play in the automation of any of the processes that we have. We do things differently in each one of the regions. Trying to get that into more of a standardized platform is definitely a challenge. Then making sure that we understand SSAE 16 and SOC 1, and how can you, anything that you do with your automation and your technologies, you need to make sure that the compliance is a consideration.
Okay, great. Dave?
In my role in sustainability, I have pretty much three functions. First of all, I have to say I started working under Tony. I was in asset services, so I'm a property management geek by nature. But over the time of the early 2000s, we started doing some areas around sustainability and doing some work in there because it became important. And we built a pretty good platform around that. That was occurring at the same time that the company, in 2007, made a commitment to sustainability. We wrote our first CSR report. We made a commitment to carbon neutrality and to become a better firm around those things. So in time, my role began to merge, and I was asked to be the global director of sustainability, which meant I was involved in that corporate function that we were doing. And we can talk a lot about that today, about just how we as an organization see ourselves, the kinds of practices we're trying to do internally. A lot of it involves around technology, the kind of space that we're leasing, the way that we're working with accounting and paperless and all of those kinds of things. So there's one role that's on the corporate side. The second side is working in Tony's group on the investor side. We have, again, hundreds of millions of square feet that our clients, many of our clients are very actively engaged in sustainability. They want to move forward. So we've developed a platform of practices and policies and services that we provide to those investor clients on office buildings primarily around the country. And then the third piece of the job is now working with our corporate clients. Corporate clients individually, one by one, have their own programs. They oftentimes are already maybe in some ways advanced to where we are. Our role there is to help them coordinate and advise them around matters of sustainability. And through all of that, what we're trying to do in the last 18 months or so is to make this a business. At first, we were doing it out of social responsibility for the company, which is appropriate for us to do. We were also developing a platform to give as a service enhancement to our investor clients, which is appropriate for us to do. But now we're also trying to do it on a for sale basis, both for our investor clients and our corporate clients. So every day my job is different like everyone else, but I have somewhat of a balance between our internal corporate functions, our investor clients, and our corporate clients.
Now, we were on the phone probably about 2 months ago, and we were talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart because we've been talking about it for 10 years, is the concept of automated lease payments, electronic fund transfer. It's a very consistent payment. It's always the same. It's probably going to go on for at least 5 years because leases are 5, 10, 15 years. And yet people around the world, in fact, I referenced that CB in Australia was doing this a while back, you know, and it's like, how come we're not doing it here? So we got into a big discussion. And this discussion actually went very quickly to the sustainability discussion because not printing checks is a green thing, right? And so if that idea all of a sudden, you know, not printing checks, who do you start calling on this group when all of a sudden sustainability jumps into not printing checks?
Well, Patty and I and Patty's group have had those conversations for a period of time. And I would give great props here to the folks at our client accounting. Within the organization, and we've had some really good stories that we've created over the last 5 years of some remarkable achievements that we've done. There's probably none that has done more, moved faster, probably than Patty's group on client accounting. And more on the work with our clients, doing our monthly or annual reports back to our clients now. Almost universally, our institutional clients are doing those electronically. And when you think about papers and pieces of paper, every tenant, and we have a lot of tenants, 45,000 I think in the U.S. the last I'd heard, so there's 45,000 checks a month that we have. But we have literally hundreds of thousands of pages each month of financial statements that we're no longer printing. Right. And so we started with the big rocks, if you will. Yeah, and so they've done a remarkable job of changing that whole philosophy and getting our clients, and you, as many of you probably know here, it is not a simple task. It's not something for us to just say, we're going to now do it electronically. Right. Oh, no, you're not.
But would you agree that getting to go paperless with checks is a sustainable idea?
Absolutely.
But you're not going to implement it. You're going to have to hand it to various people to
yes.
make it. So we got to jump an organizational...
Right, and that is a collaboration, and it also involves Tony, and with Tony's market leaders and the people that are involved at the field level in property management, they also have that daily dialogue with the tenants, and so this is really, in this case, it's a partnership between Tony and Patty and me.
Let's take it one step further. As we go to the process, and I'm not talking 20, 30, 40,000 big leases, but little 5,000 square foot leases that are at every office building that we all know, little incubator spaces. When your brokers are running around with automated leases, so I hit I agree instead of signing papers and having delivered, Don's going to get involved with that, Tony's going to get involved with that, you're going to want to have your sustainability stamp on it, it's going to impact you know, connectivity. I mean, do you now go sit in a room and say, pull your hair out and saying, this is impacting every one of us. I got a little data, you got a little data. Who owns that? I mean, Don, do you own this?
Well, Tony brought up before about his executive committee. So we have a governance process in place, and that's what Tony was alluding to, where initiatives like this would go to his executive committee, where I have an IT liaison like a Xavier, you know, in Tony's business, working with his executive committee to determine, is this a high priority? What's the payback for this? How long will it take? How much will it cost? And if they prioritize it as we need to get after this in this time frame, then that's the decision that then goes up to the overall governance committee that says we're going to get this thing done.
Wow. Peter, what's your day like?
My job's really, really simple. You know, our clients spend roughly $20 billion a year on energy costs.
Was that a B?
Yeah, with a B. When you look at all of our corporate clients, along with our asset service clients, it approaches that level. So our job is simple. It's to make it something less than that. And we focus on that, frankly, every day. What we found is that putting in basic blocking and tackling functions. And energy management is, I keep saying it's simple. Energy management is simply doing the right thing over and over and over. I keep calling it lather, rinse, repeat. And we put in the basic foundations and then do it again. Technology in this space is extremely important, however, but it's not something that you can install and then forget. Fundamentally, just having a smart building business or a smart building operation, which is the industry I personally come from before joining CB, you can't just install it and forget it. I mean, we all have seen building automation systems that get out of sync in months. So it does have to have a people process. But you mentioned Don reaching out to the rest of us. It was really simple. Don asked if I would come, and I said instantly yes, because I'm desperately working with Don and Xavier on a big data management project, which is foundational to our business.
Data management.
Data
So
management.
you want us to hit that exhibit floor?
I need energy information at the ground level for us to do our job.
When you see some of these sessions and the level of detail they're going to go in, I think you found a home.
Well, I'm pretty familiar with most of it. We work with a lot of those people out there. And you also mentioned two other things that I'll just quickly comment on. You asked about whether Dave and I are synchronized. Dave mentioned 18 months. For the last 18 months, we've been working on creating one platform, one voice, one world, or one mission for the company in bringing energy and sustainability as a combined function to our client base. And I think we've been working on that integration for a while, and we are having those singular discussions with our clients in bringing in that total package solution for the client base.
Now, I've talked to a lot of different companies, and we talk about this organizational alignment, and I always get the nods, oh yeah, we talk. But I will tell you, there are a lot of people out there in this industry that are not aligned like this. I mean, and I don't know if you see that as much as we do, but they say they're aligned, they go to an occasional monthly meeting, but I have had personal experiences where somebody like a Don tries to bring you folks into the discussion, and there's resistance, real resistance. And I got to believe that person has got to go back into their office and continue the sales and the nudging and that they're at a disadvantage because you guys are aligned, you see the finish line, you're running a relay race, you're practicing, you're moving faster.
But that's a leadership issue. I mean, Dave and I have the same challenge, right? Yes, we might be aligned 100%, but maybe the person on the ground in our team doesn't necessarily see that vision. That's a leadership issue that he and I work towards resolving on a regular basis. The last comment, I know you want to expand that question to the other people, but one other thing, you mentioned Daryl Smith and that he's been working hard for 18 months. I've known Daryl for a while. He's been working hard for a lot longer than 18 months.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen the amount of energy that's been put into this project in the last 18 months. And Daryl, I don't want to steal your thunder, but 70,000 data points out of every building on that campus. And not only are we getting the data out of that building, but knows what to do with it. Okay, and is making business decisions and is transforming his business. And to have partners like you that get it, aren't resisting, are pushing forward with it, and are open and receptive to the kinds of things that he's doing. I think that's critical. All right, I just want to throw another goofy example out there. We were at a conference about a month ago, and we were talking to somebody from a lighting company who said that the major lighting manufacturers are, I don't want to call it the time, 2-3 years, whatever, away from having small microchips, wireless microchips in every single light bulb we buy at Home Depot or Grainger, okay? Which means the minute you turn that light bulb socket on a little bit of power, that light bulb is now recognized on the network, okay? And it's now an intelligent sensor device. And I said, every light bulb? And he goes, yeah, the chips are getting that inexpensive, okay? And then the network picks it up, and so when the light bulb burns out, it communicates to the facilities people, and they make the change, and it goes into the accounting systems for reorder, and you know what it takes to get light bulbs replaced, and that's a very simple example. I think Dave's interested in that. I think you're interested in that. I think you're interested in that. I mean, is that not something that could potentially touch every single person? I'm sure you're interested in that, right, from an innovation standpoint? Does that little idea touch every one of you?
I would just say that it absolutely flows through our organization. And we heard earlier about the explosion in the internet and the Internet of Things and how that is just, it's poised to, I mean, it's happening now, but it is really poised to change the amount of data that we have to deal with. The challenge for us as an organization is to look at things like that and say, great, now what?
Right.
What do we do now? How do we manage all of this information? How do we communicate it? How do we get it to the right place? How do we put it in the hands of our people when at the point of decision where you can really use it to make an impact? And these are the things that, that frankly, I hate to use it takes a village, but it takes a lot of different perspectives to understand the entirety of that value chain, from the technology all the way through to the point of decision and how it delivers value to the client. And that's why, you know, I want to just jump on a word that Don mentioned earlier, which is connective tissue. And we talk about it all the time in our globalization teams and in our technology and innovation teams, which is being the connective tissue of the company, and building that connective tissue is the only way to move the organization as a whole. And something like that's a perfect example.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example of how it is relevant. About 3 years ago, we had one of our largest client is CB Richard Ellis Global Investors. So they're a separate entity within CBRE that is an investment manager. And they wanted to make an investment in a building in Times Square, 1540 Broadway. When you had that Google Live map up there,
right.
the building was right there. And I think it was yesterday, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talked about how some really big investments have been made and a lot of profit has been made. And just raw numbers, and these are probably generally correct, but probably specifically wrong, but I'll just throw them out there. They bought that building at $350 million, and then 2 years later sold it for $685 million. So they made $330 million on one transaction. Okay, how did they do that? They did that by going into the building and looking at every single thing, top to bottom, including whether it be, you know, electrical usage or, you know, the contracts in the building, re-tenanting the building, repositioning the billboards around the building to get more leasable space. It was a comprehensive execution of every piece on that value chain. And so are the building owners of 1540 interested in the Internet of Things? Probably not in the first conversation. They don't understand it, they don't get the value proposition, but the better we are as a team at selling it, at saying, how do you get it $300 million? Let me show you. Here's one element of it. It's the electricity. It's the lighting. It's this, that.
Well,
and so that
you all sound pretty comfortable saying the Internet of Things, and that's kind of a new statement. I mean,
Sure.
we've heard it for a while, but as real estate people, you all feel, at least so far, feel pretty comfortable. And that is the next big wave, in my opinion. Yeah, and so would you, on that transaction, would you say that it going from a big dumb building in New York to a very smart building in New York, or a redefined building, had a significant impact on the value of that property?
Yeah, well, in this particular instance, I don't think you could hold it out as the Internet of Things made this building $300
No, I
million.
get that, right.
The next big thing is making money. Right. That's the next big thing. And so, and so, you know, a lot of building owners bought buildings and their values declined, and that was also a big thing. And so there's excitement around the whole notion that you have to make money at it. And then we have to be good at articulating that value proposition along all the points of the value chain, whether it's in the chiller or the basement or the electrical usage or the tenant services at the end of the day.
So,
See, I think that's a very, very good point. We are inundated, and not just folks that are in IT, but all of us inundated with new, cool technologies every day, all the time.
Yep.
The trick of it is to the so what, you know, how do you really make it practical and of value to a business? Because if you're able to place a technology into the stream of work so that it really delivers value, then that's going to drive adoption. And that adoption is what's going to drive additional value. But there's thousands of ideas that we encounter all the time. We go, oh, isn't that interesting? How do we use it? I don't have a clue. I don't have time to think about it. I can't translate that into dollars, and that's really what
which
we
has to drive it. I mean, I've seen projects that are great and cool and everything, but if we want this to be sustainable, and that's why I mentioned earlier, the energy discussion is important, right? But the operational story is equally, if not more important from an owner's perspective, because those operational savings are real dollars in real pockets, which, you know, translate to real NOI, which is value.
That's right.
And what's really encouraging in our world, our vendors are starting to talk like in per square foot. I mean, and they're starting to understand how real estate people think, and I think, you know, that's going to help us all, you know. One of the questions we came up when we were preparing for this was, in the last 100 years, we've created certain organizational structure in real estate companies to run property, facilities, energy, sustainability, accounting. As the technology jumps the departments, does it start to blur, and does the organization look the same in 5 years? Are there still the same departments in 5 years, or is there some morphing that's going to take place?
That's a Tony question.
Let me start with that. And I have two people. There are two people on this panel right now between Ellie and Xavier. Those positions didn't exist a year and a half ago. Didn't exist in the organization. There was no such position as innovation, business intelligence. There wasn't an embedded IT person in our global corporate services business, okay? And as there are others in other parts of the business, right? So that's at a senior level. Now you're talking about changing the way we're organized from a leadership position, right? In terms of what Dave's position is morphed into, that didn't exist a couple of years ago. Peter coming in to do what he's doing, that didn't exist a couple of years ago, right? What Patty's doing, her position has existed, because of course client accounting is extremely important, but going to market with client accounting, that didn't exist a couple of years ago. When you look at our field services, our technicians, right, their jobs will change. I remember a couple of years ago when we used to give smartphones then to building engineers, the building engineers in the truck, right? We made it just push here because we don't want to make it very hard for you to open a work order or deal with a work order, right? Well, that's going to change, right? It isn't going to be just clicking on something and looking at a work order. There's going to be a lot more information they're going to need to gather before they even go out to a site, right? Before they do the work. We're going to have to train them. We have to change things around a little bit in terms of what people do so that, you know, we have less facility managers for larger portfolio.
Well, okay, so you brought up a very interesting point, and one that's very sensitive, especially in this age with our economy where it's at and the discussions that are in every single headline, is jobs. I joke about my fire extinguisher being on the network, right? That's one of the applications that we've been kind of pushing as the metaphor for really automating a building. And it's 2012, and today people in every building in this country once a month walk around with a hole punch. January, February, March, April, May, June. Okay, and we've got people in this room that have now automated the fire extinguishers. They put them on a network. They're an Internet of Thing, right? They've got a device, and that little fire extinguisher has a camera that sees if it's obstructed, if it's lifted off the cradle and it shouldn't be. We know that, and if the pressure gauge goes to a certain point, we know that. Okay, so now we put this on the network, and it's now a rules-based system, and it's only exceptions when we hear about it. We don't walk every fire extinguisher, and there's only one bad. And a rule goes to, an alert goes to my maintenance person, my engineers, my fire department, whoever needs to get alerted. But we've just eliminated a lot of jobs.
Well, we've eliminated jobs in one place. We've created in other places.
I agree.
It is not totally trivial to put that
was a loaded question.
infrastructure in place, right? And so until there were smart devices and iPads, right, and tablets that are connected, I had one PC or laptop attached to my network, right? I have 3 per person now. I have their iPhone or their iPad or their Android device and their laptop. They're carrying around more devices. So now where I had 30-some thousand, I'll have over 100,000 just getting email for that same population. So I need the infrastructure to be in place to support those devices on the network and intelligent buildings. There is a shift that's taking place. So it's not necessarily one for one. You're getting the productivity, but you're changing the equation.
Well, I mean, if you do the math, if there's 7, Qualcomm is now in the intelligent building business. We're going to be talking about the conference. Atheros, their business unit, is announced, I think 45 days ago, a very low-priced, energy-efficient chipset specifically for the Internet of Things, vending machines or or HVAC devices, which means now every little device in this room could potentially either be on a fixed network, right, a local area network, or a cellular network. Every little device has a cell phone now, which means it can communicate information back and forth. If as 7 billion people on the planet, there's probably 1,000 devices for every one of us, from toasters to light. You got more IP addresses than you can imagine. How are you going to manage that?
With much complexity and difficulty. You know, so I've got to get more network here. I have to get, you know, those devices are becoming smarter, bigger. They're becoming more affordable too, but they're sprawl. And to manage that, as I said, isn't trivial. But then for me, you know, on the IT side, the kind of people I need to bring into the organization are different people with different skill sets than I was hiring 10, 15 years ago.
Jim, let me take a run at that question because I think there's two totally different things going on at the same time. I think there's specialization going on. In other words, there are people out there that are becoming much more specialized at what they do. I mean, evidence on this panel of as our company has grown and gathered scale, we've been able to invest in specialization of an energy organization or a sustainability organization. We've been very fortunate to be able to invest in that sort of thing. But the other is just complete integration of new skills within our existing job family. Right. We've recently gone through an HR process where we've gone top to bottom in our asset services organization and taken every job description and looked at refreshing that job description. And there's some element of sustainability, energy, data management, you know, even in the whole social media skills that come into a job description. Tenant coordinators today need to be facile with some sort of social media skill that they weren't in the past. And so we're gonna manage that collection and sort of interpreting all this data with, you know, the workforce that we have, 38,000 people around the
So are you going
world.
to get the skill set through attrition and new hires, or are you going to train?
I think it's both.
Both?
It's both. You know, we have a very young workforce in asset services because, like I said, you know, in the last 3 years, we've transitioned over 1 billion square feet into and out of our organization. Wow. And so that means when we have a session like this in our own company, we have, you know, 500 people, and you ask how many people have been with CBRE for less than 2 years, at least a third of the audience raises their hand. Wow. And so training for us is a big, big thing. And so we have this, you know, training methodology where we use the internet and videos that are really aimed at the younger generation and how they learn. We call it the edutainment series. And so that's a huge thing for us in training our existing and onboarding employees.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the churn element that Tony talks about, I think, is an important aspect for everything we do. Because on the one hand, as an organization, we have 500 locations, 35,000 people. You know, we're actually a relatively small company by comparison to the influence that we have when we talk about 2 billion or 3 billion square feet that we manage. So we can get a handle on our own kind of internal thing. That's even hard. But for us to be able to influence all of that activity that's out there while the train is moving, I mean, we're trying to make changes to the engine while the car is rapidly going down. And so part of the problem that we have is even as we see a good technology or we see something that's good, we begin to institute it somewhere and that building has sold. Or that client has transitioned and been acquired by someone and they're moving on. So we have to always constantly be thinking about how do we do things in the midst of a very evolving marketplace with ideas, but also a very evolving marketplace of our own product and process what we have, because everything is different almost every day. Right. To the point that Tony made, half of our audience wasn't here 36 months ago. Half of our clients weren't here 36 months ago.
What's amazing to me is usually the biggest company in the industry is the clunkiest. You know, the battleship can't move and stuff like that, but the level of thought that's going in, not to just the communications organizationally, but down to the employee level and rewriting HR. Larry Melton, GSA PBS, you know, with the SPAS 50 project, to get ahead of it about 12, maybe even 18 months ago, had to start rewriting job descriptions for federal building property managers. Mm-hmm. And Larry will tell you that part of their property management skill set now is they have to have some IT background. And if that's not a significant difference, then people that I've, I mean, that's a major shift. So, I mean, that impacts everybody, right?
Right, I can comment on that as well. From an accounting or finance and accounting perspective, we're finding that as well, that you need to have some kind of technology background, not just because you're using computers every day, but chances are the clients are coming to us, like Dave said, this property is sold from here to here. Well, there's some kind of software conversion. This is where we get into the data standards and talking with Oscar. How do we make it easy to transfer that information from point A or system A to system B? It's extremely complex.
Very.
But as we look at it and say that as a large organization and to be agile, we do have a commitment to continuous improvement. So there's not a day that we don't wake up and say, okay, well, what are we going to do in building our programs bigger, better, faster for our clients? And so with that, when we have the investment of the people that are looking at the continuous improvement, we make a conscious effort to actually map out those processes, see where the stumbling blocks are, where's the redundancy or the rework that people are doing, and then reinvent what it is that we actually are going to be doing into the future. And by doing that process mapping or the reworking, our jobs are not the same from yesterday to tomorrow. So in 5 years from now, I do think that the role of the accountant, the property manager, the frontline coordinator, the tenant coordinator, they're going to be much more integrated than they are today, even though we feel that they are integrated, but much more because of the fact that there's such a dependency. You said it earlier, that it's no longer about the technology, it's there, but how do we get people to adopt it, to accept the process changes? When I talk to the people, my team that works for me, it's a matter of if you think that things were moving fast before, just hold on, because you can't be comfortable in thinking that you knew what you were doing before. So the edutainment series and any kind of training that we can provide to our teams, the stronger they can become and the more agile they are in accepting that change. And I call them the new kids on the block, the teams that join us, the new team members, they are the ones that they expect it. I have teenagers, and I don't know how she gets her straight A's by sitting there with the TV on, with the phone here. She's texting on Facebook and writing some kind of term paper or whatever, and you're like, but that's how we've built this new generation to be able to work on their own.
Multi-processing at a level that we can't understand.
I see the balloons flying, and that reminds me of all the balls that Dave and I are constantly trying to keep up in the air. I mean, even just this morning, at 6 o'clock this morning, I was on the phone with my people on the East Coast, and we literally talked about 6 different client projects that we've got going on, in the next 3 days. 2 years ago, as Don noted, 2 years ago, my job didn't exist, at least throughout the company, or as a central point in the company. And now at that point, we were probably working with 3 accounts. Now our teams are probably collectively working on 40, 50, 60 different client major corporation accounts on a daily basis.
And technology is a common thread.
Actually, that was the point. Thank you for making it. I forgot to make that part. The point was the only reason we've been able to kind of move into that kind of scale is by using technology, which has kind of made us much more efficient.
But the questions that our clients are asking us, or the problems our clients are asking us to solve are different today too. Our corporate clients are more and more coming to us and asking questions around how do I expand in Asia, as opposed to how do I build 3 buildings in Shanghai. Right. I mean, that's a different question. And it's starting to blur the lines within GCS between our service lines. I mean, we have the traditional service lines around client accounting and lease administration and project management, facilities management. But our clients are more and more coming to us and wanting us to work across those service lines in a much more seamless way. And I would say that, if we fast forward 5 years from now, I really question whether we will still have that organizational structure, or there'll be more maybe horizontal groups that we deliver
Well, I
services
mean, so they ask you to expand in Asia, and you've got options. You could build a big, dumb campus, or you could build a small, smart campus, right? And GSA is another great example. They did a retrofit in one of their main buildings in DC, kicked out 1,500 people, renovated it, and brought back 6,000 into the same square footage. That's an increase of 4. That's a different configuration. That's a different use. So that's a discussion.
But it's even broader than that. I mean, they're asking, we want to expand in Asia, but look at labor markets. Where should we expand? What should those things look like? Is it really a campus, or is it a cluster of buildings remote? You know, retailers are doing the same thing. How do we expand into a market in a smart way that keeps our costs down and allows us to align that real estate strategy with their business strategy in a way that, you know, we probably couldn't do 5 years ago?
So for you, it's becoming much more of a real estate discussion as is a strategy discussion.
Very much so.
And Don and your team have a lot of tools in your toolkit, if you will, on technology.
Well, and I think that the thing that connects it is not only technology. It's very easy to talk about the technology, and you know, in some ways that's the easy part, although don't shoot me for that, Don. We know how tough it is. But what's really connecting us, I think, is what flows through the technology, which for the most part is data.
Right.
And when I think about how our business is going to transform and the new functions we're going to have, a lot of the things that I think about are going to be in the field skills at interpreting data, but also essentially figuring out how we manage and connect the ecosystem of data within our company. You know, one of the things that we always say is that CB is involved in virtually every place, every part of the real estate life cycle, in virtually every part of the world. And if we can take that complete life cycle of knowledge and connect it into a seamless flow of information, the things that we could know. We always say, if we only knew the things that we knew. Right. And a lot of that has to, I think that is in many ways the biggest challenge for us and the biggest opportunity for us as an organization to deliver real value to our clients.
Yeah, I think the data analysts for real estate companies that look at the data coming out of the physical building, coming out of the accounting systems, and being able to really analyze that data in ways never before to reconfigure portfolios or reconfigure strategy. I mean, one of the sub-themes of our conference is data. In fact, my screen, or one of my slides, I said, location, data. You know, I mean, location's always been important, but I think data is at the crux of all this. I mean, I'll give you another example. About 7 years ago, we gave an award at the conference. Early adopter took a utility meter in a tenant space, took the data, grabbed the rate from a utility, and put it into a property management accounting system to deliver the monthly statement with the rent payment and the utility usage, all with no human interaction. That means you got to talk. I mean, there's some communications going on there, right? Because you care about that, right? Dave cares about that. Patty certainly cares about that, right? I mean, it's when you start to see these systems integrate, I mean, it just forces the conversation.
I was going to add one thing. I think one of the characteristics of our firm is that we do really good work lots of places, but oftentimes we don't connect the best possible work and make that available across the platform. Okay. We do that even with GCS, where we know the best possible use of or energy outcomes, but somehow we don't aggregate. All of this will change when we have the capability to aggregate all of our data, and we can take the best possible case and make that the case everywhere. And part of that also implies and requires that we really begin to get some of our asset services clients to begin to think in terms of portfolio rather than in building. We have a number of our clients where we might manage 40 buildings. We might have 10 or 12 or 14 million square feet. But oftentimes in the minds of the client, it's building. It's not a portfolio. Right. And there's reasons for that because of the different funds that they have, different cities, different leasing requirements and the like. But when we can begin getting to the point where we can aggregate best ideas and information, and then use that to create best ideas everywhere and to promulgate that across the portfolio, then that really is powerful. And we're getting to there. Right. We're doing that now with new data technologies that we're doing on energy aggregation and things of that nature. That is the next powerful step for us.
Is all these crazy things like clouds and iPhones and data integration? In fact, I want to put the slide up on the screen if we could. This is kind of the one we've used for a while. It's our integrated enterprise we came up with a couple years ago. It shows all the real estate operation transactions, all the intelligent building transactions. Don, I know you're familiar with this. And this shows the complexity of what happens in a real estate organization. And the circles overlap for a reason because they're now starting to talk to each other. And in the middle, there's this black hole we call data, and we're going to analytics and business rules and business process automation. I wanted to put it up not in respect to the technology challenges. I wanted to put it up in respect to the organizational challenges. Okay, so with this in mind, let's just go down the row and give some insight as to, fast forward 3-5 years, what are going to be the organizational challenges to making that kind of integration occur? Elliot?
It's a big question, and there's a lot of little letters on there. But the the organizational challenges, I think we're going to be struggling as a company with the same challenges we're facing now, I think that this is going to be it's going to be a transformative period, and I agree with you when you say that there is a significant acceleration in the adoption of technology. But the fundamental issues that we deal with are going to be the same, I think, for a long time. And in my mind, one of the key things that we're always going to be focused on is what we call knowledge management, which is really not just, it's exciting to talk about the analytics side and the output side, but how do we really govern all of this knowledge? How do we govern all of this data? How do we as an organization put in the kinds of rules and disciplines that it will take to put clean data into our system so we can get really good intelligence out? Right. And that, for an organization like ours that's built through acquisitions and has many different cultures and operates in many different geographies and many different business lines, that's a real challenge because we do things differently everywhere. And so figuring out how to rationalize a company that is lumpy in the way it does things with information that must be homogeneous when it gets put together, I think is going to be one of the biggest things right in the dead center of your role.
Don?
IT touches all parts of the organization. My team gets this. The question is, does the business understand it, right? So for me to have Tony take this picture and carry it around with him,
Which I do.
which he does, it helps me, right? Because IT in and of itself really isn't going to move the needle at all,
Right.
without
Business.
being connected to the business.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's what this whole discussion is about. So for this to take hold, I need the business leaders to understand that intersection.
And the fact that they're here, taking 2 days out of their busy schedules, tells me they're interested.
The change that I have seen in our organization, and I don't think we're different than any other organization, by the way, is that the business leaders are talking about this more now than they ever have, because our clients are talking about it, so we have to talk about it, right? We know that it's an important lever in our go-to-market strategy. It's key to our future success is how we deliver on this. Right. And at the leadership level, at the very senior level, I'm sure at the board level as well, all the way down throughout the organization, technology is in the conversation much more than it ever has been. It's showing up in the investment that we're making. And so I would say, my challenge is there probably aren't enough people here in the room right now from the industry. And, Jim, I'll throw the gauntlet back over to you and Realcomm is to help get this word out to more people, so that more people do understand how important this is.
We do constantly. If you knew the communication strategy we've deployed in the last 4 months, and there's natural resistance. There is legitimate natural, maybe it's because people are too busy, but there is an absolute part of our business community that has been doing things the same way for 20 years, and for whatever reason, of which there are probably a half a dozen, they turn the other cheek. They look the other way. This is either too complex, it's too much work, they're late in their career, they don't need another challenge, and we are getting natural resistance. And so, as you saw, but it's changing. Every year it's getting better. On that adoption curve, even this year we got people bringing teams, and that hasn't happened really in the past. The CIOs would come, but now all of a sudden we're getting energy, we're getting sustainability, we're getting facilities, and we've got 4 or 5 people running around. Now, the other thing that is happening in our world is the people who are at the edge, kind of little interested in the topic, they're dropping off. It's getting to be too much of a challenge. And that's why I made the statement that I think the next 36 months, the gap between the leaders in this industry and the followers is going to grow. And the way you operate your assets and run your real estate is going to be significantly different from those people who are not at the conference. And I think we'll start to see the difference on the streets. Tony.
So Jim, I'll answer your question about the organizational change in sort of 2 different ways. The first way is culture. I think our company is committed to this value statement that we call RISE, R-I-S-E. I see you like acronyms, so I'm going to throw a few out. Respect, integrity, service, and excellence. That's the thing that we've all committed to as partners here, and the other 38,000 folks around the world that work in our company, that we just say, those are the things that we're not going to negotiate. And oddly, I think it plays into what you see on the screen, because that culture...
Simply the enabler.
Yeah, it's an enabler, and it's a culture of innovation and wanting to be the best that we can be. And why not use technology if it's out there to serve your clients better?
Right.
And so I'm going to take that same acronym and relate it to a more executable, or the term we have in our little group is crunchy kind of acronym, and it's same acronym, RISE. Research, getting the data, and then turning that research into intelligence. And something that really means something, rather than, if we just got a data dump of every light bulb in this building, it wouldn't mean anything.
No, nothing.
And so then the S, strategy, so turning it into a strategy that, okay, now we're going to be able to manage something and produce a ROI. And then the most important one on the end is the E, the execution. And so finally, that little value chain of RISE on the second phase is, it breaks down at some point, at every point along that stage. And when it breaks down, there's no ROI. And when there's no ROI, there's no desire to invest in it. But as a company, the thing that is interesting for me is, Patty's part of my organization is my biggest cost of goods sold. And so it's 1,200 people that sit all around the globe that do client accounting on behalf of our clients, but it's the biggest part of my cost of goods sold. And it's also the part that if we mess up, our clients lose their clients.
Right.
And so there's an enormous electron microscope on what we do in client accounting, from our clients to us, and then from our management team to running that business. And so that really is the generator of interest in, how do we get better at deploying technology in that part of our business? How do we get more efficient? And how do we develop this mindset that everyone in client accounting is actually a business person and a frontline business person, as opposed to, well, that's just a back of the house function? Because it has become, in many cases, clients want to hear about our client accounting. It's become our go-to-market tip of spear, as opposed to just another thing that we just tick the box, and it's something we do well. But at the base of it all, I think it gets back to culture, and Ellie and Don both pointed that out. And it's a culture of desiring to really want to be the best we can be at deploying all these great ideas.
That's very cool. Well, and for being such a big company, being able to pull that off, that's pretty significant. So we're at about 10 minutes to go. So 4 quick summaries, and then we'll wrap it up.
I'll just, very, very quickly, I think the value of coming to a conference like this is, exposure and perspective. The technology part is actually the easier, right? But the tactical reality is that individually we're kind of limited by how far over that horizon line we can see. And that's true of organizations as well. I mean, we're struggling every day trying to understand not only the technology and how to employ it, but how to make it very real and tangible for our clients and the delivery of our services. And I think that's really the struggle, is more being able to evolve that perspective so that it becomes part of what we do. And I think it's something very natural with any innovation, that it'll accelerate over time. The more people that are at conferences like this and interacting and talking about how to use the technology, how it's going to deliver value, the easier it will be for us to determine what that value is, right? And infuse it into everything that we do. So it's
and up against a backdrop of this stuff changing every second of every day. I mean, it's a daunting challenge, in my opinion. Ready?
Yeah, I would agree with exactly what you're saying there, Jim, because as we look at it, typically a commitment that we make to any major project is it's going to take you 24 to 36 months. We don't have that luxury anymore. that it's changing. And so I think that we have to look at it and be okay with the fact that you get 6 months down the road and you may change the path a little bit. But that's okay. It's because we're involved in conferences like this. You're learning more. The technology is changing. And traditionally or historically, it's been difficult to make that change. But sometimes that's the best decision. It needs to be made that you're going to change your path to get to your ultimate goal. Your goal's going to change. And it's okay in this environment.
It is, yeah, yeah. Halfway through the race, the finish line changes. Yeah, that's the new normal. Dave?
I would just add that in the end, most of what we are influencers. We're advisors, but in the end, we try to influence the behavior and actions at our properties or with our corporate clients. And we all, as a group here, also have the opportunity to influence what happens within our own organization. And so the better we are, the smarter we are, the more knowledgeable we are, the better we can advise and the more we can influence decisions. And you and I have had numbers of conversations over a number of years about really where are we in the kind of continuum of this. I do agree with you that there's going to be some breakthroughs. I think the technology is there. It's up to us to begin to use appropriate data to understand the technologies in a way that we're comfortable enough and confident enough that we can influence the actions of our clients. And then you'll have victories, and victories lead to bigger victories and a movement of the industry. So we're influencers, and coming to a conference like this and having an opportunity with my fellow CBeers here is a continued opportunity for us to get smarter about it, to influence better.
I joined the company a little over 2 years ago, and just before I did, Bill Kincannon, the president of our corporate service business, he said, your job is to go get us value for scale. Now, that was really a simple mission for me. And what we did was we had to lay some certain groundwork, some certain foundations, some certain basic services. But from there, we then focused on integrating our services with other parts of the company. So you have to do that from a growth perspective. That's why Dave and I are working towards one platform, one mission. We're also working with our sourcing teams and trying to help us be more efficient in procuring, you mentioned light bulbs. So we're more effective in procuring light bulbs. I'm working with Xavier on a data management service. I'm working with our FM teams on making sure that the maintenance structure is consistent with the energy structure. So that sort of integration point across the entire spectrum of services is how I think we will achieve value for scale.
Did this departmental integration come from the top?
It takes someone at the top with the vision and the strategy, and then getting alignment with the senior team first.
So
then you can execute.
Cal drove this? Would you say that's?
I think he had a lot to do with it. I have to give him a lot of credit for signaling the investment in the platform and the structure to get that done. Yes.
Yeah, Jim, you said at the beginning that there was going to be no wrestling up here. Don and I have wrestled before,
okay.
So it hasn't been easy, but I think that there's a mutual respect that we have for we're all in this together and we have the same goals, to service our clients. So I think that it has become a lot easier in the years when we have the mutual respect and we have the same goals to drive for.
Well, the fact that you were, I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say, it's very interesting because there's a very top-down piece of it. There's also a bottoms-up piece of it. And what we've witnessed over the last year and a half, I think, as an organization that's brought a lot of us to this stage, is those two things really coming together. I can't help but think of about a year and a half ago when I was with Tony and Don at the Global Operating Committee, and we were talking about our technology and our investment and our thinking about data as a defining part of our business. And a year and a half ago, that was it wasn't a new discussion, but it was one, we're coming out of the economic crisis, we got a lot of other things to deal with, but it was one that was beginning, and the way in which the culture of our organization has allowed that discussion in a short year and a half to sort of permeate through all the levels, up, down, and across, and create the connectivity. I think it's it requires leadership, and it also requires that culture, and it's a special thing in our company.
The fact that you were willing as a group to come and have this discussion says a lot. I want to thank you for that, because I know how busy your schedules are, but I hope, and Don, if you could, one final comment to the audience. Now, you're the big company, the big ship. Can these same principles be applied to small, medium as well?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not just a big company thing, right? This is a philosophy that should be deployed from the smallest of real estate company to the largest.
A small company,
Absolutely.
you have only 2 people doing it all, but sure.
Right.
No, but in a small company, you leverage the people that are around you that are providers into the environment. And in many ways, that's the biggest threat to a big company like ours. We had better be on our game,
Move
or
quick.
we're going to be out of business in 5 or 10 years. I mean, that's the thing that keeps me up at night, is that small, nimble companies can just completely do the end around. In my business, we're on 30-day contracts. And so in 30 days, we can be fired, 60 days, whatever it is. But, and that keeps me awake at night, that the small companies can come in, and if they have superior technology, and they have superior personnel and superior training, we're done.
That attitude makes good companies great. Because if you wake up every day not
Scared to
complacent
death.
and trying to make yourself better, you can't lose. You can't lose. So, folks, thank you so much. Probably one of my best sessions in doing this for 14 years. Again, to have all of you in one place to have this big discussion, a pretty big milestone for me. So hopefully the audience enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.